Hey, how's it going, everyone? And welcome back to another Falcon and the Winter Soldier Friday here on the FilmSpeak channel. I'm, of course, your host, Griffin, and this is the place where we like to say the conversation continues after the credits. And, of course, we'd love to have you be a part of that conversation. So consider subscribing to the channel for more Falcon and the Winter Soldier talk, video essays, all of that good stuff. This is, one of the most direct ways of continuing that conversation. So we're going to have a great discussion today. We're going to be reviewing and breaking down episode number 5 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Little quick preview of our thoughts here, or at least my thoughts here. For the most part, I have struggled with this series and its inability to sort of like move forward with the story, the convoluted nature of the plot, and just some of the character decisions and the contradictory character actions. But finally, for the first time in probably this entire recap playlist, I think I'm going to go positive on this one. This was an excellent episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and in fact, it made me a little upset because this is what I wanted the show to be the entire time. And obviously, we'll get into more details, but like I think for the first time in the history of this series, I left the episode thinking about Sam Wilson and no one else. And so I think that's probably the biggest compliment that I can give this episode. But of course, my opinion isn't the only one that matters. I am joined by two incredible guests. Elliott from Movie Files, as always, is here. Elliott, how you doing, man?
Doing good, man. It's good to hear, Griff, that you're finally coming around to the show, my friend. I know it is the 5th episode, but hey, better late than never, right? I've been enjoying this series thus far. Yes, I know we'll get into the criticisms here, but I thought this was a fantastic episode of television, a great moment of history for Marvel as a company, and so much of stuff that went down this episode that I'm so excited to break down with you today, man.
Yeah, again, and I think if the biggest criticism of this episode, aside from the Flagsmashers stuff, is that this is, I finally see what the show, like the potential this show had. Mm-hmm. It only took us 5 episodes to get there, which, that's, a complaint. But anyways, we are also joined by FilmSpeak contributor Bryce Bailey. Bryce, how you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for having me on again. I'm excited to talk about this episode.
Yeah, of course. I love the synergy we had last time, and this was like a big episode. So I'm like, all right, we're gonna bring Bryce back on. We're gonna bring back on. We're gonna have a great discussion. It'll be positive for the most part this time. But before we go any further, guys, be sure to jump down in the comments section and let us know your thoughts on the episode. If you're watching us live, be sure to throw your thoughts and opinions into the live chat. We may address them, or it's good to have it there because we enjoy what you guys have to say. So be sure to do that. Elliott, I'm going to start with you. What are your overall thoughts on this episode? I think you kind of alluded to it. You definitely went positive on this one.
Yeah, no, this episode, man, as you kind of alluded to a little bit there in regards to opening the doors and kind of really getting to know Sam in regards to in his headspace of what he thinks it means to be a hero, as, reverse of that of what John Walker thinks what it takes to be a hero, as well as just adding in the conversation that he has with Isaiah Bradley. That conversation to me was something that I knew Marvel and Disney had the capabilities of having that type of conversation, but I never thought that they would go that step to having the conversation being had regarding history being erased and what it meant for Isaiah being, the Captain America of his time, but having his history erased there and his family and all this stuff. The generational conversation of trauma that he went through and having that conversation with Sam was fantastic. On top of MCU, incredible action. The question I have for you guys when we get into it is the brutality of that opening scene, Civil War. This not the context of the fight, but just the brutality and the hand-to-hand combat and what we get in that first scene. So you get all that. You get a mystery character that opens the door for the future MCU stuff. So this, to me, culminated of a continuation of the story, character development, building the seeds for future MCU stuff, giving me some great social commentary with Isaiah Bradley, as well as setting up a finale. So this was like really just kind of thinking of it. And I'm excited to rewatch it later on. This is one of the best, like not even just television like moments in the MCU, and of course WandaVision and all the stuff we have in the future, but just like in a Marvel capsule. This was incredible writing across the board. So very, very awesome, incredible episode for the Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah, just before we go to you, Bryce, I do want to say I did initially tweet out. I did say I think this is one of the best hours not just of television, but like it's one of the best hours within the MCU. Again, my only critique is I wish the entire show had been at this caliber. But Bryce, going over to you, what are sort of your overall thoughts on today's episode?
Yeah, I thought that this was a great episode. This is easily my favorite so far. I think including all the WandaVision episodes, I think for me personally that this is my favorite out of all that we've seen from Disney Plus. I think it's really rediscovered what it started out. I really liked the first episode. I liked that it was going over, these in-depth character moments about Falcon and the Winter Soldier and these ideas about like legacy, race in America, American ideals, the American dream, if it's real, if it's for everyone. And then I felt like episodes 2 through 4, while I liked them, like, last time I was on, I liked episode 3. I thought they were fun little side quests, but they were kind of just like that. Like they were side quests. Wasn't something that I felt like had like built on that greater narrative from the first episode. And I think that this episode really capitalized on all that stuff from the first episode. And sort of like what you had said, Griffin, this was kind of what I hoped that this whole show would be. So, kind of better late than never, but I'm glad that it's kind of gotten back on track and we're getting some of that stuff that I really liked in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like even... the stuff I liked about episode 1 was Sam in his civilian domestic life when the show focused on Sam, because listen, it's called Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but and as much as I love the stuff with Bucky and his trauma, this is Sam's time to shine. He is going, and we've known this from the beginning, where like Sam is going to be the next Captain America, but he has to overcome some things in order to get to that place. And I mean, like it is Sam and Bucky's show, but it is Sam's show. Sam needed to be front and center, and I think for a lot of the past episodes after 2, Sam has really been sidelined. And I think that's what's frustrating about this is that this episode has all of the payoff, right? It has all of those incredible moments. The stuff between Isaiah and Sam, especially, I think is one of the that's the defining moment of this series. The montage of Sam training is incredible, because it's like he wasn't just given these abilities. It's like, he had to fucking work his ass off for it. He has to be able to wield that shield with confidence, because he's not going to inject himself with the super soldier serum. And so it's like, this is an episode that's all payoff before the final battle, like the showdown between, Sam as Captain America and the Flagsmashers. I'm assuming U.S. agent. We're going to see John Walker as U.S. agent show up there, and he's going to be a foil for that. But this is all this episode is all the payoff. But I can't say that the rest of the series necessarily like built up to this moment in a way that feels earned, right? Like it doesn't necessarily work. I think as a single episode, this is incredible. This is so phenomenal, but it really frustrates me because this is the core of what this series should have been the whole time, right? We've got the Flagsmashers going on around and stuff like that, and in this episode, they're basically just like proven to be irrelevant. Which is a shame. And then they just completely take the easy way out, and they make Karli and the Flagsmashers, they just completely say, nope, they're just villains now. They're basically the new Hydra. And I think that's a really piss poor way of concluding. I mean, obviously we have another episode left, but at least up until this point, it's a really unsatisfying way of I guess the trajectory these characters have been going down and where they ultimately wind up. And with the stuff with Sam, it's like I wanted more Sam in the forefront before we get to here, because then it's like, yes, like this feels, this is like the what he was basically going to evolve to. So, and I don't know if you guys feel the same way or if it does work for you, but Elliott, we'll start with you.
Yeah, no, I definitely kind of hear where you're coming from. I do actually appreciate kind of the arc that we've seen with Sam, and again, just kind of put it in a vacuum. It was 4 weeks ago since we got, or I should say 5 weeks ago, that we got that first episode. So it kind of does with that kind of week to week and speculating things and all the MCU news we're constantly hit with. We sometimes forget the little moments and we kind of think of the overall kind of pie versus the slices of pie. So I think that it kind of led up to this point, whether it be his conversations of number one, not taking up the mantle, giving it to the museum, trusting in the government, and having that conversation with Rhodey. Episode 2, kind of transitioning from his kind of mindset of having that Bucky conversation of, again, what the shield meant to him and why he doesn't have that family legacy. And kind of episode 3, totally agree. That's where I feel like Sam was definitely put on the sideline. Like Bryce said, I think that was like more of the, not fun episode, but just kind of the MCU having fun, Matterport, introduction, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that third episode feels like a massive
It really
outlier
does.
now.
It really
It's just
does.
a side quest. I mean,
It
an
really
enjoyable
is.
side quest, but
Yeah, like there's and kind of similar to what you were saying, Bryce, earlier. I think there are enjoyable things about that episode, but in hindsight, I mean that first of all, the first time I saw that episode really frustrated me for many reasons. But now it's seeing it in the context of the larger story, it's like it's frustrating me even more. And so yeah, I mean, but I totally agree with you, Bryce. It just felt like they were going on a bunch of side quests, and that there were so many characters they needed to service, and then now they're like, oh yeah, I think it's about time that we pay some attention to Sam and really tackle some of the issues he's dealing with. I don't know if you felt that way, Bryce.
yeah,
But
I think in like kind of how you were describing in a contradictory way, like this episode being so good, like kind of made me feel like the series as a whole is more frustrating because I got to see like, oh, episode 5 is really good. And then contrasting that with what came before, it's like, well, if episode 5 was so good, why were, 2 through 4, even 1 to a certain extent, but I'm not going to dock on that too much because it was the first episode.
yeah,
But like, it makes the other ones feel just frustrating because it's like, why couldn't we have had this the whole time?
well, I think a lot of it comes down to that they should have condensed a lot of this stuff. I think, and credit to our friend Zach Pope, who's been preaching this for a while now. I think this would have worked better as a film. You eliminate the Flagsmashers. You don't even need them in the story per se, right? Like you. And if you need a threat for like Walker and Falcon and Winter Soldier to go after, I don't know, create something that isn't necessarily like that they need to like go after, that we need to really like explore, because when we see the Flagsmashers, it's like everything we've gotten from them, it's like they're not really wrong, but you keep doing these things that contradict like what it is that they're about in a way that feels like a betrayal of their character rather than like a compelling story beat per se. So like I feel like if you take the Flagsmashers out of it and you focus on the foil being John Walker, and you focus on Sam and Bucky, and like Bucky obviously trying to atone for what's going on, which by the way I want to get to that scene where Sam and Bucky are having that conversation around the shield, and like we've seen Sam's real superpower in action before when he was talking to Karli. Now he's using his his ability to mentor and treat these, not treat, but just like have a conversation with soldiers who experience PTSD. That was a conversation between those two that had needed to happen for a long time. But we have like Sam and Bucky, doing what they're doing and then going up against Walker and stuff like that. I don't know. It would have felt more concise, and they could have tackled the more compelling parts of this entire series so far. I don't know how you guys feel, but
I totally agree.
My thing with the Flagsmashers, again, not being the biggest fan of them, I see again what they represent in regards to the Forgotten Ones and the government and not being there, and obviously having this John Walker who stands behind his government. As we see, he's kind of now disarmed from his rankings and all that stuff, and seeing what the government really can do when they forget about you. As we see John Walker going exactly having that same mindset that Karli's going through, but I think it's just a matter of how they handle it. And I think it's been kind of quoted a couple times that apparently there were a couple rewrites due to obviously the pandemic, and there was supposed to be a much bigger character arc with the Flagsmashers involving some type of vaccine, and obviously this might be a little bit too close to home. So I think with what we were given, it could have been better, could have been more fleshed out, but I do see it could have been anyone with the face at this point with the Flagsmashers, what they represent. Yeah. But I think ultimately the kind of the underlying tone of what those characters supposed to represent is what happens when the governments forget about people and what they can stand for. As we kind of, I don't know why it's coming to mind, but just thinking of, I know one of your favorites, Griff, Iron Man 3. The Mandarin never showed up in that film, but we see kind of what that ideology can create from the 10 Rings, from creating Guy Pearce's character, or creating the fake Trevor and the fake Mandarin. And we kind of get that in a sense of the Flagsmashers. They might be a small villain on the show, but they can speak to a larger kind of underlying tone of the MCU in a Captain America 4, in an Avengers film, and just seeing it on a smaller scale, but then it meaning something bigger, power broker, whatever the case may be in the future of the MCU. But it's just unfortunately the Flagsmashers are kind of the weakest element, but I see what they were trying to go for.
I definitely do too. And I think that the big takeaway from this, and I liked this about this episode, is they weren't afraid to address it, is like how it's the United States government and their actions and their lack of care for their own people that radicalizes individuals, right? We see it with the Flagsmashers, we see it with John Walker, I mean, we even see with Isaiah Bradley, right? And how he was treated.
100%.
I mean, how he basically is just like, no, fuck this, right? And
Yep.
rightfully so. Like, we get it. We're behind him and everything.
I mean, look at Sharon Carter. She's been forgotten about.
Sure.
Everyone's been kind of forgotten
Totally
about
left
in the
behind.
government. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think that's what's interesting about the show. I just wish that you know, they had been exploring that prior to this episode. And I feel like we got hints of it here and there, but it wasn't in a way that, I don't know, was satisfying. But until this episode, like, again, everything with John Walker and U.S. Agent is fucking phenomenal. Like, that is hands
great
down
character.
the most. Yeah, he's
Very
such
much
a fascinating character. It's the most compelling stuff in the show. At least consistently compelling. Obviously, Sam, Isaiah, that stuff's really good. But like John Walker is consistently the most compelling stuff in the show. Wyatt Russell continues to deliver these powerhouse performances. And like, especially now, we see how he sort of like slipped into this dark state. I mean, there are some sequences in here where it's like, you know, John Walker is like genuinely terrifying now.
Oh yeah, especially with the serum, you know,
Yeah.
corrupting him and all of that.
Yeah, for sure. And that scene when he's in the courthouse, right? And they're like, they use some like really like highbrow, I guess, posh way of like dishonorably discharging him, but they don't say dishonorably discharged, and he just walks out. And again, something that's just so fascinating about the handling of that character is like we dislike him, and he's very clearly in the wrong, right? But like, we also, I mean, as it's been like the entire show, we do sympathize with him to an extent, right?
Yeah.
And I'm glad that he had that moment where he was telling us like, "You made me this way." It's like this is all because of the environment.
It's almost
you
like the
created.
government's his villain as well.
Right. But I'll say this. I wish, and I understand why they can't do this, I wish that they would criticize the structure of the military that made him that way as much as they're criticizing the government. Because it's really easy to point a finger at like the hierarchy here and the powers that be in Congress and whatever. But I think that like there is something to be said about how the military sort of like, I don't know, molds these individuals. And I'm not saying it's like it's like an it's like a all-encompassing sort of thing, but I don't know, there is something there I would have liked to seen explored. But I don't know about you, Elliott, starting with you, sort of just like that court scene and John Walker and as a whole.
Yeah, and I have no shame in saying this, man. I do sympathize with John Walker. And if I'm being honest, I don't see him as a villain. I'm being 100% honest with you. I don't see that at all. I don't think it's black and white as that. I think it's very gray as his suit and kind of his mantra has been so far in this show.
Yeah.
And just putting the shoe on the other foot. If this show was called John Walker / Falcon and Winter Soldier, he's the hero of his own story. And he has been, as we can see, if this was Bucky in the situation of someone that kind of was, an assassin, he was almost like the government is almost his version of Hydra. They set him on this mission to be Captain America and not necessarily having boundaries. He felt as though going to last week, that was a terrorist, and that's what he felt was the right thing to do in the heat of the battle, in the heat of the moment, like Kamar told him last week. He always makes the right decision. So listen, John Walker, and I think it plays so much into Wyatt Russell's performance. Hate the character, but don't hate the actor. I mean, he is doing a phenomenal job, and I have no problem saying I can see where John's coming from, and he is the hero of his own story.
Yeah.
He has a version of what he thinks Captain America is and what it takes to be Captain America.
Yeah.
Very Punisher-like in regards to this is the means that needs to be done. As Thanos says, I have the will to do what needs to be done. I think John Walker is showing that. And hey, man, I stand. Hey, I don't stand by John Walker and condone his actions, but I can see exactly where he's coming from.
And I totally agree with you. I think he's sort of on this line of like sort of being an anti-hero where you definitely know he wants to do the right thing. Like he's not trying to do the wrong thing. And obviously the serum's not helping, corrupting his mind and all of that. But I think what was interesting in that courtroom scene and afterwards is sort of he almost has his version of like the Winter Soldier, like the movie that Steve did, where it's like, he believed in this institution. He tells, this, whoever that panel was, he's like, I stood by you through thick and thin, and then now you're not going to stand by me. And I think he's having that little moment where he's like, maybe sort of like Sharon said, maybe this stars and stripes stuff really is bullshit,
Yeah.
I think he's having that moment where he's realizing like, I'm just a pawn to them. Like, Captain America thought he's just a showpiece. They don't actually care for who he is.
which is absolutely powerful. I think the thing I struggle with him is like when you take a look back and you look at it as like, okay, the Flagsmashers are clearly or like if you step away from like the intimacy of what's going on, Flagsmashers are terrorists. John Walker is going after them. They kill one of his own. He goes kills one of them. Like it makes sense why he did what he did, right? Like it's but yet it is still really difficult to justify those actions, right? Like it was very clearly the wrong. And even like afterwards when we get like seeing like Sam and Bucky chasing after Walker, they're saying like, listen, we get why you did what you did, like but you can't like do like, this isn't okay, we have to try and fix this. I don't I really struggle with it because on one hand, I get it because the Flagsmashers have been branded terrorists, but on the other hand, just because of how poorly that group has been handled, like I can't say that that was necessarily like justified, right? And so we're in this weird, it's like
moral gray area.
Yeah, it's a morally gray area, but it's like I feel like because of I don't know. It's going back to like the fact that the Flagsmashers, in my mind at least, are like they have been basically put into this corner. Everyone's been attacking them. And the show keeps saying that they are these radical terrorist individuals, but like when you actually get those moments where you see into the organization, it's like they're not bad, right? And that's sort of where I struggle with like Karli going full villain and like wanting to blow up buildings of people and stuff like that. I'm like, that doesn't feel like who she is, or like who she's like proven herself to be.
On the flip side of that, though, I feel like I'm just kind of happy they just picked a direction.
Well, like that is the one thing, right? Like I am happy.
Like I'm like, okay, we have a villain. They do villainous things. We can go from here. Like I felt like that's what was really lacking the first 4 episodes was they kept doing that back and forth.
Yeah, and you're 100% on the money there. I guess it's just for me, I like struggle with the direction they picked. But you're right. At least they have sort of like said, no, they're going to be villains now. Real quickly before we do move forward, I just want to address the super chat in here. Sorry for the wait, Daniel, but really appreciate the support of the channel and whatnot. Would you guys say that both WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier brought Emmy-level acting from the actors in both TV shows? Yes, I would. I would say in WandaVision, definitely Elizabeth Olsen. She showed incredible range with that character. And in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, obviously we've been talking about Wyatt Russell as John Walker, but fuck it, man. I'm going to throw in Carl Lumley. Carl Lumley as Isaiah Bradley floored me last night. That's an Emmy-worthy performance. I don't know how you guys feel, but...
Yeah, 100%. The TV performances from Wanda, Paul Bettany have been much more richer than they've done in anything in the movies, and they were fine in the movies, but not no Oscar-winning performances from WandaVision, but definitely some Emmys in their performance there. And this TV show, like I said, whether it be Wyatt Russell or, Carl Lumley and, Sam and Bucky have really, I don't necessarily think they get nominated or anything in that case, but they've really kind of opened up their kind of what they're capable of when they're not doing MCU stuff and they have a moment to kind of sit within the characters because, Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan are great actors in their own right. So I think there's definitely more award tension to these shows than any other Marvel performance that we've seen of them in their films.
Yeah, I think definitely Elizabeth Olsen. I would be very surprised if she wasn't like at least nominated or even won. And then as far as Falcon and the Winter Soldier goes, I'd say Wyatt Russell would probably be my pick.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's I just mentioned Carl Lumley and Isaiah Bradley. Let's talk about that scene. That scene is, you and I, Elliott, we're sort of saying like, yeah, this is probably where the show's going to go. They're probably going to have that scene together, and that's going to be what sort of pushes him into becoming Captain America. But we ultimately, I think when you and I were discussing it, we were like, oh, he's probably going to like convince him to take up the shield. It was the exact opposite. The exact opposite. And I loved that. Hearing his story, hearing the trauma and the horrors he had to endure. He even says no self-respecting black man would take up this mantle, and then he talks about 500 years of oppression and stuff like that. And it's just when the way that Carl Lumley delivers those lines, he delivers them with such vigor and intensity, and it's you feel for him seriously. So Elliott, I want to start with you about that whole Isaiah Bradley scene.
Yeah, man. Those stars and stripes don't represent me. It brings up the conversation. I think of Barack Obama taking in office, being the first black man to take in office, and what that responsibility meant for him in this country that has continuously put down minorities and put down the African American community, as well as people that join the military, that join the police force. When you're a minority and there's been so much kind of segregation and bigotry and racism, how could you possibly put on that suit? How could you put on that mantle, as we see Carl bring up to Sam? But then there's always that other side of the coin. You have your Malcolm X and you have your Martin Luther King Jr. and two sides of the same coin, but they go about their kind of ways much differently. And we see that with Carl Lumley's performance in this moment. How could you take up that shield? How could you represent that shield with the years of 30 years of me being locked up, being in prison, losing my identity as a person, being denounced as dead, losing the opportunity to be with my wife and my kids? And Sam sees the complete opposite of that in regards to, now I can make my own path, and you set the path. You unfortunately have to go through this trauma, but I can now kind of not necessarily right the wrongs, but kind of create this new legacy of what the shield represents and what a black Captain America can look like. So that scene, again, I applaud Marvel for taking that stance, because of course it's Disney. They have probably shareholders and they have investors and writers and producers that might not necessarily feel comfortable having this type of conversation, because some people don't like to have politics mixed in with the entertainment. But that's what Captain America is all about. From the origins of the character, fighting Nazis, to dealing with racism and dealing with different things, this is what's a layer within the origins within all these characters and where these characters come from. So I applaud Marvel from, unlike episode 2, when we have the on the nose. The more I think about that moment with Sam being pulled by the police, it was just too on the nose for me. And it could have worked if they would have followed up with another scene, but they had Bucky go to jail and they'd never really addressed what really happened. But this was the moment where it's like Marvel's just like, listen, forget all the outside noise, forget what side of the fence you lay on. Let's talk about some of the truth, which is very layered into the history of our school systems, of people being forgotten about, and history being erased. So I thought that was applaud Marvel for having that conversation, and hopefully this isn't the last of the conversation they have regarding racism, in not only in the world but in our MCU world as well. So I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I was really surprised, quite frankly. I didn't think they were really going to go that deep. I was very pleasantly surprised they finally were able to flesh that out. I thought that was such a great conversation. If I had to pick one moment in this series so far that I feel would encapsulate what this series is about, I feel it would be sort of that conversation. Going back to that idea of legacy, it's they sort of have two different ideas of legacy. Isaiah Bradley seems to think legacy is just doing what the previous person did again. So the shield and the mantle, the stars and stripes will never be anything but what it once was. Right. And then we kind of see Sam coming from this new perspective where he's it's sort of in episode 1 when he says it's whoever's behind the symbol, it gives it meaning. So he's kind of going off on his own path, becoming his own thing, his own Captain America. But I think, he wouldn't have come to that revelation, I don't think, unless he had this conversation. So yeah, once again, really great conversation. I'm glad that Disney had it. And I think that really hit the nail on the head as far as what the show was going for.
Yeah, no, 100%. That is, like I said at the beginning, that is the scene that definitely defines this series. And I think it's one of the best scenes out of the entire MCU and whatnot. So yeah, I don't know. Do you think this is the last we see of Isaiah Bradley in the MCU? I think it kind of puts a nice. Yeah. Really?
Maybe next episode, but honestly, I'd be a little skeptical if he came back.
I wouldn't hate it if this was the last that we saw of him, just because I think it is such a powerful sort of closing note on his arc.
I think he still has some. He has his grandson, Eli Bradley, and if things were to play out, if he's going to be, Patriot, I think there's going to be a lot of conversations between him and his grandson in regards to what it means for his grandson to be a superhero, as well as what legacy he passed on from his genetics, genes. He still has a super serum inside of him, so I would imagine his offspring might have a hint of that inside of them. So I think if they were to go that route of Young Avengers, I would hope Eli has a conversation with his grandfather, and again, Carl Lumley in that role. I can definitely see him coming back, and not again, no big long extended, him being in a solo film or whatnot, but definitely having some conversation with his grandson about what he thinks it means to be a hero.
I think maybe in the next episode, if Falcon like totally takes up the mantle, decides he is Captain America, has the shield, maybe like have a moment in the finale where like they can finally like come to some even ground or like some terms. But if that was sort of the send off, I think I'd be happy personally.
Yeah. I get what you're saying, Elliott, about his son, because I think that is an interesting conversation to have in and of itself. If his son, kind of follows in the footsteps of Sam, and his grandfather being this really jaded guy based on how he was treated in the world, I think that is. There would be a lot of like interesting material to mine there. But again, I assume that Eli Bradley is going to find his way into the MCU as a hero in some capacity. It just feels like you wouldn't introduce a character like that if you didn't have plans to sort of like follow through with it. So, yeah, for sure. But I guess, going back to Sam and everything, a lot of this episode was downtime, right? They even kind of made a joke about it. Sometimes the best thing to do is to like wait until something pops
comes
up.
I love that line, by the way.
Yeah, that was a great line. And I think it was just like interesting sort of seeing Sam, go back home, help his sister with the boat. We get resolution to that thing that was happening at the beginning.
Yep.
He like ropes in the community. This is the first time we actually see Sam call in favors, but he's calling in favors from of his like hometown friends, right? Not like these people, these fake people that know him or whatever. He's calling in the people that he knows and loves, and then seeing like Bucky sort of like taken into the fold there, I thought was really really quite beautiful. I don't know how you guys felt there.
More than beautiful, man. It was, so I think of Avengers Endgame when the Avengers lose and they go to Clint's farm, and obviously in the film we only get like 5-10 minutes of them in that farm, but we see kind of what that looks like when an Avenger goes home and kind of regroups themselves. And we see Sam going back home to not only regroup himself, but also family legacy. We talk about legacy a lot. And the boat, obviously, is a materialistic thing, but it means so much more than just fixing up a boat. It means fixing up the family, it's fixing up his, problems that he might have not necessarily runs away from, as you're talking about with Sarah, but going back home to work on this boat to kind of also work inside of himself, fixing his legacy and what it means to hold and don that shield, as well as having his partner there, his teammate in per se, or his friend that has a mutual friend with Bucky being there. I thought that was so critical and so important for him to be there again. Not going toe-to-toe, going to war with someone, but having a moment in someone's home, meeting their family, and working on this again, this metaphor of this boat on working on himself as a man, I thought was just like incredible to see, and taking his time, having the training montage, which felt like I was watching Rocky for a bit there.
Yeah.
It was needed.
I was gonna say is that's the first time that we get like the proper Falcon theme, right? Or really the Sam Wilson theme. I'll have to say, because we've gotten it in the credits and everything like that, and like that's really cool. But like that was what that theme was intended for, right? The training montage and everything, him becoming Captain America, like that was unreal. I loved it. I got so excited for Anthony Mackie in that moment.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that like this was sort of the stuff I was more excited to see. Like I was like, okay, we've seen them beat people up, we've seen them get into fights. Like I kind of was like, let's go back to the boat, let's go back to Sarah, let's see how that goes. And I think we actually saw like Bucky and Sam actually like click more than just having jokes back and forth.
Yeah, that's the thing. This episode contained, I think, to be maybe not the first, but like one of the very few genuine interactions between the two that I believed, that I bought into.
That's not just a one-liner.
Yeah, I think that was the thing. I think early on they were too concerned with like the quips, the one-liners, playing into that buddy cop thing, and I don't really think that this show even remotely resembles like a buddy cop sort of like narrative, really. And so just to see them move away from that was so good, so refreshing. And eventually it was going to have to happen, and they were going to have to like make amends and stuff. But there is something really powerful when they're sitting there tossing the shield back and forth, and Bucky says like, I Steve and I would never understand what it means to be a black man in America holding this shield, or something like that.
Which was a great line for me, because I always wondered if Steve told Bucky that he was, what his plans were. We just assumed that,
right.
But it does solidify that Steve had that conversation with Bucky, his best friend, and saying, hey, this is who I'm going to give the shield to, and having that approval obviously from Bucky. So I love that they kind of threw that in there, as well as they keep saying that Steve is gone. which Captain
I'm
America
pretty sure he's
gone,
dead.
but yeah, that almost puts a nail in that. Yeah, I think for a minute I thought he was alive, but they keep saying he's gone. So yeah,
unless maybe he's like in hiding somewhere or something. I don't know why they would have to do that, but
but they did say gone quite a few times to allude that he is no longer with us. Which I mean, we'll see how they handle that.
He's pretty old at the end of Avengers Endgame, so I think it's not beyond the realm of possibility, but it is. Yeah, you're right. They do keep saying like gone.
Yeah.
So, but the other thing that I really liked about that is that we're now understanding, Bucky's rationale. I mean, he had already sort of like alluded to it a little bit earlier on in the season, but we are finally understanding Bucky's reasoning for feeling so like passionate about Sam taking the shield, right? Because it's like the shield was he says it's like that shield's the closest thing I have to family still living. He's like, I know that's crazy, but it's like when Walker took that shield, I felt like everything was just uprooted. It proved that Steve was wrong about me. He was wrong about you. He was wrong about all this stuff. And I think that's a beautiful moment where they both sort of like understand what they've been saying the whole time. Albeit, I mean, I didn't really I didn't feel like, I don't know, like watching that whole thing, I'm just like, you could have had this conversation like 3 episodes ago, right?
You didn't even need therapy.
No.
You could have just told him this.
Right. And I think with Bucky, it's like, I'm glad he came to that realization, but I didn't actually like feel him come to that realization, right? It just sort of like came out of him. And perhaps...
I think it goes back to the boat, man. I think it goes back to that boat of them working on the boat, because I think to Sam, that's his shield. That's him not giving Sarah, do not sell this. It's a materialistic thing. They can buy a boat for hell. Well, we know Tony Stark hasn't given the Avengers money, but they can replace the boat if they want to. But no, this is our family's boat. Same goes with Bucky with that shield. This shield is my family. So don't just give it up to anyone. Don't just sell it off. So I think that boat really did not only sit with Sam, but seeing Sam work for that boat clicked with Bucky and having his moment, with that. So I think that boat, again, was a huge moment for them to build that together and fix it up.
You're right, and I guess that is sort of like the coming to Jesus moment for Bucky. It just didn't feel. I guess for me, it just sort of like came out of nowhere. I mean, it makes sense, and I think that's definitely where he felt that. But I felt like they didn't necessarily pay that much attention to Bucky during that stuff. There were a few moments, right, like with him seeing the kids play with the shield and everything, which is such a great moment. And a few other bits where he's just sort of like helping out. But I don't know. I think I would have liked a little bit more to hammer home like the realization, like just maybe a few shots of Bucky just like taking a step back and like looking at Sam working, right, or like looking at everyone sort of like this community that Sam has fostered building the boat. Something that reminded him of like the ideological power that someone who is Captain America has to have, and for him to understand that. I don't know. I think for me,
I guess a lot of that was just implicit.
It is, but it is. I don't know. I think they were just shy of nailing it. I mean, in my personal opinion, I
have a feeling, man, that it's something that Sebastian said a couple weeks ago, and I know Anthony Mackie said it too. But it's more been so much so in Sebastian's camp about a season 2, and I wouldn't be surprised if we do get a season 2. Not that Sam wouldn't be involved, but I don't think we haven't seen the rest of Bucky's story. I think that there's still something to kind of tackle and kind of dive into and really kind of explore more with that character, whether it be him making amends to the guy we met in episode 1 and obviously other people on his list as Sam kind of puts him on his journey after we get Karli. We might see more of Bucky and maybe a spinoff series potentially, or, whatever the Wakanda show is. He's a white wolf and there's still more to explore there. So I think there's a lot more meat on the bone for Bucky to really explore those demons and come into who he is as Bucky Barnes.
I think next week we'll get that sort of reconciliation between him and the elderly gentleman.
I hope so.
I think
it'd be terrible if they didn't, because they definitely set that up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I definitely feel like there's no other thing that they could do there but do that. But I guess at the same time, it's like, Elliott, you and I sort of talked about this during the first episode. We're like, okay, so it's probably going to end with him, literally closing the book on that whole debacle. But kind of going back to what I was saying prior about that scene between Sam and Bucky, about Sam helping Bucky with his PTSD, that was really beautiful, because it was like just seeing like sort of the progress that he was trying to make, and then Sam sort of saying, well, like you're not really doing this for yourself. You're trying to just check off names on your list of people you've wronged, hoping that it'll make you feel better. But that's not what's going to make you feel better. And I think that was really a really powerful thing to address between them, because the entire season was about, you know, Bucky sort of trying to leave the Winter Soldier past behind him, right those wrongs, et cetera, et cetera. But it always felt like every time he would like make progress, he would revert and it just, his entire arc, I think up until that point, felt a little jumbled. Now we understand that has a purpose, right? Like, he's going about it, and we like Sam to really you know, bring this. Oh, sorry, I think I might have crapped out there a little bit, but
yeah,
did it cut off?
good.
Did it cut off my
a little bit?
Yeah, I think Karli Morgenthau might have done that to you, man. She has so much internet capabilities on her.
The Flagsmashers, man.
Yeah, the Flagsmashers.
Okay, cool.
Because Elliott,
they're
take
after
over
me,
now.
guys. It's going to you.
Oh. Well, we'll let Griffin get back into the stream, man. But I guess kind of the one thing that I guess Griffin kind of alluded to it regarding, you know, we do get that quieter moment, Bryce. But what did you think about that actual fight, man? That we get to open up the episode. I would love to know, man, the brutality of that fight, man. Civil War or this? Which fight to you was just like?
I mean, it obviously drew so many parallels to the fight in Civil War.
Yeah.
So I was very excited to see that. Obviously, it was great action. The brutality, you know, it was like, I know I just said I didn't really want to see all the action, but like it was kind of satisfying to see some of that action. And I think it just sort of really solidified, you know, why we should be afraid of John Walker. I think Griffin had said that earlier, where like he's just obviously erratic. He's got the serum in his system. He's unstable. And we just got to see sort of that just raw aggression and why we should be afraid of him. And I mean, when he ripped the wings off of Sam, I thought he was like, I didn't think he was going to kill Sam. Like, I thought he was definitely going to like severely hurt him and take him out.
That moment, man, that fight sequence, like you just mentioned, it was so paralleling to the Civil War fight and so connective. And, you know, Bucky losing his arm to John getting his arm broken, and just the brutality of that was just phenomenal, man. It was PG-14, Marvel. Congratulations. This makes me get excited for like a Blade and Punisher and Daredevil when they get
they can get away with a lot on Disney Plus.
Disney Plus. Yes, Disney Plus, man. I love that scene.
That part where he gets his arm broken, that was brutal. That was so
I thought
brutal.
his arm was going to be like done.
His arm like snaps.
Like, I was worried it was just done, like out, totally down for the count.
Yeah. I love that opening sequence, man. The brutality was awesome.
Yeah. I want to highlight this. I want one comment in here that I absolutely love. Let me see if it works. John Walker
with a box of scraps
in a cave with a box of scraps.
You're not wrong.
Yep, I love it. I love
Again, the best line from Iron Man.
Yeah.
The
box of scraps.
I was very excited at that post-credit scene. Yeah, it has me really amped up for what we're going to see in the finale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're going to continue to lose Griffin.
I'm going to go.
Is that again?
Elliott, take it away.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. Are you there, Griff? Well, I guess I guess we can. There was a comment, and with Bryce, and when Griff goes back in, I guess the cameo.
See, I didn't know who that was. Admittedly, I had to Google who that was.
Oh man, that's a legend.
So I watched the whole thing, and I was like, wait, we didn't get a surprise cameo. And then everyone on Twitter was talking about the cameo. I was like, who? And then I had to Google it, and I was like, oh, I'm not too familiar with her work. So, but I guess you'd probably be more if you are familiar with your work.
Yeah, man. I'm not the biggest Seinfeld fan, but with being a big fan of comedy, I know what legacy that show holds, and Veep on HBO, and she's an 11-time Emmy winner. So as far as big actors go, as Marvel continuously knocks it out of the park when it comes to casting, Julia Louis-Dreyfus is an incredible actress to team up with the MCU. And I think in Griff's back here, I think this isn't a one-off. I don't think this is, hey, pop in and this never see her again. You know, the news has come out from Variety that she was supposed to be in Black Widow first, but the character she's playing, the implications of what that character can mean to the MCU is huge. Not only tied to Black Widow and the Red Guardian and Sword, or I should say Shield and Hydra. I can't wait to get more of Val because there is a lot that can come with that character.
Do you guys think she's like recruiting for the Thunderbolts? Perhaps that was my immediate thought.
So yeah, there's that for sure. Also, I am running off of my hotspot right now, so we'll see how well this
making
works.
it happen, man.
I had to switch it.
If it works, it works.
Yeah, man.
The other thing that was that I saw floating around is the possibility of maybe her recruiting Walker to be like the Hydra Captain America or something like that, which is interesting. I don't really like buy into that a whole lot.
Is that Hydra gone?
Well, I mean, you would think, right? But I don't know. There's definitely something nefarious going on.
Oh yeah, we know that with Ant-Man. With the guy taking the serum still out there. They're much smaller now, and they're trying to rebuild. So
maybe AIM too, if AIM's not totally gone.
With AIM and obviously some Sword stuff going on. There might be some double agents within Sword.
Yeah, for sure. But if I had to venture, I guess I think I would agree with you guys about the Thunderbolts happening, them planning.
I just thought I had seen that like William Hurt was like confirmed in the show. I don't know if that was just a rumor or whatnot, but so I just thought, if they're saving him for the finale, maybe it is some sort of Thunderbolts, and she's like, I don't know, his secretary or his second in command or something.
Right. Well, I mean, traditionally in the comics, right? Like she's Nick Fury's ex-girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she's revealed to be a double agent working for Hydra. And again, just her connections to Russia and the Red Guardian, her lines again, I know about the serum because she has, ties to the serum with the Red Guardian. So, but also like I think you just mentioned, Bryce, in episode 6, I could totally see a post-credit scene with Zemo being in his cell in the raft and, other various characters, maybe Abomination, and then recruiting the Dark Avengers or, Thunderbolts. I can totally see that being a really awesome post-credit scene led by either John Walker or maybe Black Widow's sister herself. So it's some stuff that can happen with that character. But I thought it was great to see her because I'm pretty
sure they had said that like they originally had it where Black Widow had to come out before this.
Yeah.
But then they had to rewrite to put this one first. Yeah. So that makes me think maybe like whoever Florence Pugh is playing in Black Widow was supposed to maybe cameo in it, but I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I mean it's entirely possible for sure. I guess like when it comes to the finale, at least what I think is going to happen, I think is John Walker is going to like try and kill Karli, obviously because he's on this vendetta. Sam's going to swoop in, something like that's going to happen. He's going to save her, etc. Walker's going to be defeated or in prison, and or something's going to happen, and then that's ultimately where she recruits him to be in the Thunderbolts. But yeah, that was before I like lagged out a second ago. I was going to ask, how do you think the whole finale thing is going to go down in that regard?
So I can see it being kind of like a WandaVision situation where they kind of go action heavy for the first half just to kind of not necessarily knock that out of the way. But I think like we kind of alluded to, it's more and don't get me wrong, we love the action in this show, but I think it's more the quieter moments, the character moments, the development moments that don't really have a lot of the fireworks that we can probably see that, the first half focusing on that fight, John Walker being arrested, being, taken in after trying to kill Karli. I hope they don't kill her because I do think there are some things to explore with that character more, not the Flagsmashers, but more so Karli Morgenthau. So I can see them kind of taking her in, taking John in, and then the rest of the episode. And number one, I forgot to mention, Sam has a special gift from Wakanda, him donning that new suit and really kind of taking in this new Captain America mantra and seeing obviously where Bucky goes to. So I can see most of the first half being action heavy and the second half kind of really slowing down in regards to this is leading to Captain America 4 potentially. And who knows, Mr. Old Man Cap might come in there and tell, Sam a thing or two on his new journey there. So,
Yeah, I think I kind of agree. I think it'll follow like that general formula. I think that it would be kind of cool and fit sort of the narrative if like Sam, obviously I think we're all in agreement he's going to have like that Captain America suit that he has in the comics, like the white one.
Well, that's the thing. Before you go any further,
pretty sure
you guys... Well, I mean, it has to be. But were you guys bummed that we didn't get the first look at the end of the episode, or are you happy that they saved it? I
would have liked to have seen it.
Pulp Fiction, man. We don't need to know what's in the case.
Yes, exactly.
I'm assuming he's going to don all that. We're going to get some
Yeah.
good action where he's going to be flying and using the shield, which I'm sure will be a great combo.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see like him and Walker go one-on-one and have him beat Walker and be like, in your face, I didn't even need the super soldier serum. Yeah, like you have the serum and I still beat you, and that's why I'm Captain America, like something like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think Bucky's going to be involved in that final fight. Like I think Bucky might be to some capacity, but I think when it comes down to it, I mean, this is like Sam has to prove himself, right? This is the origin story for the Sam Wilson Captain America, and I think like he has proven himself to be worthy of carrying the shield. Now he's got to go out there and be Captain America, right? So,
and a random thought that I had that I thought would be like kind of sweet, like sentimental, is maybe Zemo takes care of Sam's monetary problems. We know that he's rich. We know that he's a baron. Maybe it could be a moment of him like realizing and coming to terms that he's not entirely a bad guy, and that he can align with their interests and does have some good in him. And it would kind of make sense, in my opinion, why they had to go out of their way to establish that he was rich. So maybe
other than wanting to be comic accurate,
other than needing a private jet to get to Madripoor.
Right.
But I don't know. That was just a thought that I had where I was like, that could be an interesting ending.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah, I'm happy you brought up Zemo, because that's sort of where I want to go next. Is just the handling of that character. Loved the moment between Zemo and Bucky. I thought that was that's stuff that I've wanted to see for a little while. Didn't love the resolution to Zemo's arc. Because of the way that it concluded, it was great. It was a great character moment for both Zemo and Bucky, for sure. But I think because of the way it concluded, it felt like Zemo's arc was a little pointless, right? Like it was just one of those things that just served the narrative. He was just sort of like a plot device in a couple of ways. Like I would have liked a little bit more from him there. It just sort of felt very a very abrupt ending to like his involvement.
I think he was kind of a plot device, but I had initially thought that, but then when I thought about it, I was like, I think his whole purpose was to like get Bucky to continue moving on. And I think him being able to come to terms with him and not killing him, like they bring him in to sort of do this whole, is he still the Winter Soldier? Is he not? And, have Zemo toy with him. And he has to prove that he's not. And I think that this final moment was him like finally coming to terms with that. So I think I liked how they used Zemo in this series, because I mean, we don't know if it's truly, it probably is, but like, so I think that he played a good part in showing Bucky moving on.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And also too with Zemo coming to terms of not killing his whole mission of killing these super soldiers, but seeing the opposite sides of, as Sam told him last week, it didn't corrupt Steve. And we see that, what could you say about Bucky? And as he kind of comes to, terms with Bucky is a good guy, not all super soldiers are evil. So I kind of like that he even though he couldn't kill Bucky if he tried, but he has that moment of saying, I'm not going to kill you, but also said that, planting that seed in Bucky's head, you're programmed to be a killer. You need to take her out. And I think we're going to ultimately see, when you mentioned Griff regarding that one-on-one fight with Sam and John Walker, I think we're going to see Bucky maybe coming to terms with Karli and not actually taking her out. That's why I hope they do just apprehend her and not kill her off and have her moment in future projects or whatnot.
Yeah, I feel like Sam is the one that has to appeal to Karli, though, right? That has to be the resolution of that arc, because it would feel weird if it was Bucky appearing to Karli. Which that's sort of like the other thing that I think frustrates me about like Karli doubling down on this is like she's like pissed at Sam for this whole thing, and I'm like, what did Sam do that caused Walker to go after your friend and like decapitate him? Like that wasn't.
Well, I think she thinks that he was in on it.
I don't. Again, it just goes back to like her like threatening Sam's family, and I'm just sort of like, but that doesn't. Yeah, that's a great way to appeal to the person that you're trying to like come to terms. Anyways, just off on a tangent there, but that was just sort of the thing that I think was a little frustrating for me in terms of that. But again, yeah, I do think that the Sam and Karli resolution, that has to be the way that you that you wrap up that arc, I guess.
Yeah, I think Bucky's resolution's not going to come from fighting. It's going to be facing the Japanese man.
Yeah.
Because I think if he resolved all of his issues by fighting, that would kind of be like contradicting what his whole arc is supposed to be. Because it's almost like Sam is like amping up to be the fighter, be Captain America, and then Bucky has to like de-escalate and become like a normal person.
Yeah.
Or normal or whatever.
Yeah.
Right, for sure. All right. Well, I guess what are some of the other? Was there anything else that you guys sort of wanted to tackle in terms of this particular episode? Anything that we missed?
I'm still kind of torn on what the show is doing with Sharon Carter, with her making the call.
Because she brings in
That just shows you that she literally was the one that hired him in the first episode. She was the one that hired him to kidnap those soldiers.
Is she supposed to be the power broker? Was that supposed to tell us that that's who she is?
I don't think she is, and not schematics, because Zemo did say it's a he, right? It's the ruler of Madripoor. I've heard of him, and he's the judge, the jury, and the executor. Again, they referred to he as it was going to be a he that was the engineer with WandaVision, ended up being that soldier or whatever. So I don't know if it's just like, if they're just maybe they're just assuming it's a he, a man can have this power, not a woman. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't think it's Sharon Carter. I think she has.
Do you think it's General Ross?
I was thinking that for a while, but I mean, he's a U.S. government associate. I don't know if he would have the time to be able to be U.S. Secretary of State and then working on the.
To be fair, he's Secretary of State in 2018. It's been some time. I'm just saying, like, I feel like maybe that could further highlight how like the whole world has changed after the snap. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, the Justin Hammer one to me is really the one that's been kind of. I've been seeing a lot of the Justin Hammer rumors of him being the power broker.
But see, then that could bring into Armor Wars.
That's what I was going to go. It plays into the comedic moments that Marvel kind of plays with revealing. Again, I know you like the man and reveal, Griffin. I'm still not a big fan of that, but it can play to like, we know Justin Hammer as this kind of dancing, not buffoon, but this guy that works with armor. But then, like you just mentioned, Bryce, 5 years, what has that done to him when he was in jail and him coming out of the other side as this kind of boss, of the power broker? I know a lot of people are alluding to Norman Osborn or Kingpin.
Could be Trevor from Iron Man 3.
It could be Trevor. Yeah, he's acting as the power broker.
Now we're just getting ridiculous. But like,
I don't know if they would make that reveal next week, to be honest with you.
I don't
if they don't, I'd be pretty pissed if they don't tell us who it is. They better not pull a WandaVision on us.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I would like the Justin Hammer thing, just because I prefer him. I don't want him to be this like Mad Max post-apocalyptic like arms dealer. That to me is just like a little weird. But like him sort of like still working as like a government contractor or whatever. Like the pathetic nature of Justin Hammer is what made him so entertaining, and like his inability to like match like the Stark Industries sort of level of innovation and technology. And I think there's a lot you can do with a guy like that in the in the arms business in a show like Armor Wars. So I feel like that is a more interesting sort of avenue that you could take with Justin Hammer, as opposed to Justin Hammer is the power broker. I don't know. That to me is just like, whatever.
I think it's fair to say, though, it probably won't be like a huge, big, well-known comic book character revealed for the first time. No. I feel like it can be, just given the track record that they've given us.
Right.
Yeah, I would love a Matthew McConaughey as the power broker. All right. That would be great, man.
He'll just be playing his character from The Gentleman. It's like instead of weed, it's like
I saw one theory that it could, how like Moon Knight has like multiple personalities. Like he's like a bodyguard and he's this and he's that. Some people were saying, what if it's one of Moon Knight's personalities that he's a power broker in Madripoor? It could lead into that. Who knows?
Again, these theories are what gets us in trouble. And ultimately, I think in terms of the show, the power broker doesn't really, at least for me, it doesn't mean that much in terms of things. Yeah. I saw a couple people in the chat saying, do we think that John Walker is going to die next episode? No.
There's no way.
They're not gonna throw away that character. He's too interesting, too valuable. There's still so much left to explore with him. Right. Again, as we were sort of like talking about, earlier in the earlier in this recap show, I think John Walker is going to be a member of the Thunderbolts or some sort of organization like that. Hell, I even think they can make a U.S. agent show that spins off from this, which I would be so fascinated in seeing. I don't know about you guys, but
Yeah,
I would
100%.
watch that. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't bring in a Wyatt Russell just to have this one, this great role, but I think there's so much more meat on the bone to see that full transformation, because we might not even get that quote unquote U.S. agent mantra to like a post credit scene, like, hey, we want to bring you in. We have a job for you, because I think there will be someone, whether it be General Ross, Val, the power broker, whoever it may be behind the scenes. They see his way of handling business, and there's some people that will agree with that. And again, him leading that team, whether it be Dark Avengers, Thunderbolts, or so on. So definitely don't kill him off. There's so much more to explore with that character.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, he hasn't been called U.S. agent.
No,
has he? Okay, so that could be like a whole other mantle he could take up.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I think next week is the arrival of the U.S. agent, for sure. All right. Any last things you guys want to bring out before we close this out? Anything that we haven't necessarily touched on?
No, I think we hit on most of the points, man. I think this episode really goes to show you when Marvel, they've come a long way in regards to not being scared to have the conversation. Hopefully they don't kill off characters in the finale as they did in phase 1 with Amadeus and a lot of their villains in the first phase. So I think Marvel's come a long way. This show is really shaping up to be something special, and I hope they stick the landing with the finale next week.
Yeah, for sure. Bryce?
Yeah, I thought this was my favorite episode so far. Great episode. Really excited to see where the finale goes. And at this point, obviously, it'll depend on the finale. But at this point, I'd be down for a season 2.
Yeah, I think they'd be foolish not to do a season 2 of this. There's still so much more that they can explore. Granted, I mean, look, I'd love to see a movie of this. I feel like Sam, Bucky, Walker, all these characters are really worthy of that big screen treatment. But if they wanted to continue just the Falcon and the Winter Soldier sort of thing, I'm okay with the movie. I think that's definitely a great route to go down. Or sorry, not a movie, a series. I think that's a season 2, actually. That's a great route to go down. But guys, that is going to do it for this review and breakdown recap show of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode number 5. If you are new here, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more Falcon and Winter Soldier recaps. We do these every Friday, more video essays. I should hopefully have a video essay on Falcon and the Winter Soldier coming out next week before the finale. That's sort of just like compiles all my thoughts and everything. So if you want to, continue the deep dive into Falcon and the Winter Soldier, stay tuned, because it'll be hitting the channel next Wednesday or Thursday. Thank you to my 2 guests for joining me, Elliott, Bryce. Elliott, where can everyone find you?
Hey, man, it was always, as I say, Griff, every single Friday, it's an honor, it's a privilege, man. We had over 100 and some odd people in the stream today, so thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Even Griff had to fight the internet on this stream and came out on top. So, yeah, guys, you can find me here on YouTube at Movie Files, talking about shows like this, other, new movies, and all that fun stuff. And every single Saturday, we do live streams talking about Falcon and Winter Soldier. So tune in tomorrow, 3 p.m. Central Time. Myself, Amanda, Austin Burke, and Paul from Heavy Spoilers will be diving deeper into this episode. So check me out, guys.
It's going to be a good episode. And Mr. Bryce Bailey, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Bryce Bailey 2814, and it's the exact same on Letterboxd as well. I'm pretty active on there. But yeah, this was fun. Thanks for having me again.
Of course. And then you could also check out Bryce's phenomenal content over on the FilmSpeak website, just www.filmspeak.net. And if you like me specifically and you like what I had to say, you can give me a follow on Twitter, guys, at Griff Schiller. All right. Thank you so much for tuning into this review, breakdown, whatever you want to call it, of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode number 5. And we will catch you back here for the finale next week. Take care.